Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to Good Vibrations, a Beach Boys program with the editor-in-chief of Endless Summer Quarterly, ESQ for short. There he is, David Beard. I'm Ron Vaccaro. So happy to be talking about all things Beach Boys, whether it's past, present, now, or then. We will bring it to you gladly. And some exciting news to start off this with. Mike Love inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. The ceremony will be in New York in June. And David, yeah, your reaction?
I was just really glad to see this. Mike's been nominated, I think, twice before, and uh, and just the names that are in that list. It's not like it's a kind of a bottom feeder award by any stretch of the imagination. He got the Ella Award, I want to say back in 2013 or 2014, and that's kind of a fairly prestigious award. Now Brian, of course, has got more awards and accolades than Mike does, and deservedly so. Brian Wilson was the 2005 Music Cares Person of the Year, and that's quite an esteemed award to get. I hope that Mike gets that someday. But I like this. I read about it couple of years ago, the first time that Mike was nominated, and I read what this was and kind of this, the songwriter, and Mike is a songwriter. He's not strictly a lyricist. I mean, I think, but categorically that would work too. But when I discovered it online a few days ago, I just was really I was really excited for him, as I would equally be for any of the guys.
And it doesn't take away anything from anyone on the list because you look at the nominee list, to your point, and you're like, oh my God, who are you leaving out? Like, you could almost say that the vast majority, if not all of the people who were nominated this year, they're going to be in. It's just a matter of when. Sometimes you could look at a sports Hall of Fame list. There's some people on the NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame list every year where it's like you take a look and you're like, you know what? Probably not getting in this year and probably aren't going to get in. This list, they're getting in, all of them at some point.
Absolutely. I mean, the nominees were, to name just a few, were Eminem, Sheryl Crow, Alanis Morissette, the Doobie Brothers, George Clinton, Janet Jackson, Bryan Adams, David Gates, and Boy George. Now, not all of them got inducted this year, or will be inducted this year, but this is the third time Mike's been on the list, and I was just really glad. I really wasn't sure when I saw that he was nominated again that it would even happen for him, because as you point out, there are a lot of people in different Hall of Fame categories where you think that, oh, they'll get in immediately as soon as they retire, and then there are other people you kind of think they deserve to be into something, but it's just sometimes it's kind of a quandary because it just doesn't take, right? There's like Steve Smith. I'm a Carolina Panther season ticket holder, and he was a Carolina Panther wide receiver for quite some time before he went to the Ravens. I think he retired. I think he came back, signed a one-day deal or something, retired as a Panther. Now, he never won a Super Bowl. He has such good numbers. He is certainly someone who deserves to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Different category, but Mike Love has earned this. This is the famous scene in Saving Private Ryan, where Tom Hanks' character says to Matt Damon, earn this. And that's what I just thought of when I said that. Mike has earned this. This isn't I think it speaks to how great the stuff that he and Brian created in the music industry and how they changed, the two of them. Brian, certainly with other lyricists, Tony Asher, Roger Christian, Gary Usher, Van Dyke Parks, to name a handful. But he and Mike really, out of the stable when they got started, really affected music as we know it. And so this is, I'm not going to say long overdue, because a lot of times when somebody is given something, it's their time then. So that's how I feel about it. I feel it's Mike's time.
Brian was inducted to this in 2000, And I think one of the things that strikes me as kind of cool, that was a quarter century ago. There's just something, for a band that's been around so long, a quarter century is just a fraction of the longevity period of it. And just it's notable to me that sure, the Beach Boys as an entity, a lot of accolades, and now individually, um, some of the principals will, I think, continue to rack up some accolades. I don't think this is the last one that any of the principals is going to get. I think it will. It might even do the opposite. In fact, it might even say, "Oh, well, Mike Love is going in some pretty esteemed company, deservedly so, in this class." What other awards organization might realize that there's some Beach Boys who should be recognized for some things? Because certainly the impact is not just a past tense thing; it's very current and present in all forms. So I thought it was a really cool thing to see.
Yeah, I did as well. Yeah, it's I just started kind of going through my head of all the different songs that Mike has co-written, and just the very interesting history that he's. It wasn't until he started releasing his solo albums, 2017, 2018, 2019, and I had conversations with him, and he was talking to me about arranging, and it was just funny to me. And I thought, gosh, I've never thought of Mike that way. I always just think of Mike as the lyricist, or that, yeah, sure, he can come up with an idea for a song in terms of its structure and would suggest something, but I'd never thought of him as an arranger. And so for Brian to already be in, and for now Mike to go in, it's kind of like the other shoe is on the other foot.
And I think it's a place of abundance, right? It doesn't take anything away from anyone. There's room enough to go around, and I
That's
think
right.
that's what the Songwriters Hall of Fame is saying here very loudly and clearly. And look forward to covering that as it gets closer to the induction ceremony in June. So
Can
there's some other, there are some other news to talk about. We keep talking about this is not just a history lesson, folks. And in the news category, we can go to Al next, and Al's got some news cooking too.
Yes, yes, he does. He's been working. Well, Al's one of those guys, and I think this anyone who's kind of a hardcore fan would know this if they have the Feel Flows box set, which is right up there behind you, and or the Sail on Sailor box set, or the Pet Sounds box set, the original one from the 90s that David Leaf put together, or the 93 box set over here, or the 2013 box set. So there's a lot of music by the group that, for one reason or another, will sit in the vaults until somebody kind of goes and can get the label interested in enough to, financially back a product. Al's one of those guys who's kind of, and I think this is true with all the members, has just kind of music that he has recorded and great ideas that he has put together over the years that he just kind of keeps, and they don't always find their way out, for the public. And one of the songs that he has publicly spoken of is called Islands in the Sun, and he calls it the follow-up to Kokomo. And man, I know that I heard it because I was in Al's studio back in 2005. It was played for me, but I don't remember it. I remember liking it, but I don't remember it. Um, uh, so I'm looking forward to that. I don't know I just know he's in the process of completing a second solo album. And I hope, I have hopes. I like Al's voice so much that my tendency with him is to just almost always enjoy it, because he's like, for me personally, when Carl was still with the group, I always enjoyed it if a song came out that had a Carl lead and then an Al and a Carl mixed in. Like if you listen to Island Girl from Still Cruising album, that's a great Al and Carl. Well, they're all singing, but just the two of them. Carl doing the every now and then, it's just, I love it. I love Carl and Al together on anything. So although Carl's not here anymore, every time I hear Al, I'm reminded of Carl and how much I miss him and his voice. So Al's kind of the voice that kind of takes me back more than any other voice, not because of how well he's kept it up or anything like that. It's just a matter of, there's something, and maybe it's because Mike tours more, so I hear Mike more. I'm not sure why that is, but I do like, I do like the nostalgia element of Al's voice, and I feel like it carries me to other places than just what the song might suggest.
I think Al's shows give a sense. I think they're paced in a way that allow more time for some of that reflection too in the moment, as we've talked about before. Maybe that's a little something too. That's an aspect of whatever configuration of Al shows I've seen over the years. I've appreciated and give him credit for is there's really a there's like a okay you're gonna have an opportunity here to really think about something else while you're in this moment because he's going to kind of take you on that tour um, in a pretty different cadence than let's say a Mike show. And in case it's not obvious, I love both iterations, but they are different.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just going to say that I still hold out, not a hope, but something I hold in my heart that they will converge on a stage together at one point. I would love to see it this year. But heck, even if Al's there and just comes out and does the encore, man, I'm telling just to see, they sound so good together. It just would be so much fun to see. So I'm rooting for that, and I always will because I'm just a fan of the guys, So I'm always rooting to hear that blend.
I'm yeah. I'm going to give you. I'll confess to this, and you could tell me, Ron, that will never happen. You're silly, and bring it on.
Okay.
But I was thinking, and it's a sad topic that we talk about as well. But for a second, as they're planning these fire relief concerts in LA and whatnot, I was thinking, gee, if there was ever a moment that would bring it together, either as a live performance at one of the LA venues, because let's face it, it's not going to just be one or two concerts. The relief
Right.
effort is going to be massive, and there's no one that's more, I think, universally got the message that you need to just feel than the Beach Boys. So I
Universally
was
appropriate. Yeah.
thinking if there was anything that could bring such a thing together, it might be for that cause. And oh my gosh, how powerful that would be.
It would be really something. It would be really special. I'm glad you brought up the LA fires. In the latest edition of ESQ, and in the I'm gonna have to see. And okay, what I'm thinking about is I also am sending it out links in the VIP newsletter. We'll also have them. But there's two things that I saw during the LA fires that stand out to me, that were powerful to me. And I saw that Steve Guttenberg was suddenly showing up on television. And the reason he was showing up on television was he was calling in to ask for them to spread the word that if people were abandoning their cars along the highway, that they don't lock the doors to the cars, and that they'd leave the keys not in the ignition, but that they would leave the keys in the cars because they were blocking the throughway for the fire trucks to come in. And Steve Guttenberg was out there, and he looked exhausted. And he was out there, and he was not willing to leave until he cleared the roads and drove the vehicles out of the path that was blocking the fire trucks from coming in. And when I saw that, I just thought, man, here's the dude from Police Academy and 3 Men and a Baby. And I just went, wow, what a world of respect I have for this guy. And then also, then I saw a thing shared on Instagram, I believe, by John Stamos, where he had posted, his wife Caitlin has her own Instagram account, and I don't know what it's called off the top of my head, but so she grew up in the Altamita section of Los Angeles, and I think a lot of that was burned down.
Yeah, Altadena, yeah.
Altadena, thank you.
Yeah.
And she got in her car and drove down there to try to see what was left and how she could help. And she went to one local church, one little tiny small local church, and was using her own money to buy gift cards. And she was literally help packing stuff so people had relief packages, food and necessities. And then she went to the second church second small church, and that's when she asked. She said she asked. Entertainment Tonight was covering it, and she asked John to come down, and he was resistant. He said to them on camera, "I was resistant to the idea because he's a TV guy, so his brain sometimes he's just like, is this appropriate? Do I want to come down and publicize this?" And he said to the guy that he was worried about that, and she said to him, "Get your basically get your ass down here. We need the publicity. We need people to know." And what I saw in that moment was two things. Bravo, right? You're wow. It doesn't matter what walk of life you are, because it doesn't matter where you come from. If the fire's coming and your house is in the way, it doesn't matter who you are or how much money you got or anything. It's just gone. It's like any natural disaster. But the big thing was, I thought to myself, wow, John Stamos married him a good woman. That's a good woman. And I didn't take it to be, oh, it was just her neighborhood that she cared about. I think that's what got her in the car to come see. But her desire to use her own money and to care and to like spend hours there trying to get the word out, like, come on down yourself and help and join us. And we want to take care of people. That is a foundational message that I hope everyone hears, because we have a lot of polar opposite of that going on in another particular climate in our world right now. So I think that is the type of thing that really we need more of. Gutenberg and John's wife are I'm sure they're just two of the many wonderful stories that are taking place out there. Not to mention the first responders, who I don't know a single one of them, but if not for them, I mean,
Different story, even worse.
yeah. So I saw early footage of where they were dealing with really hard winds, and I saw the shot of the plane come down right on top of and was still managed to put all the water on a big chunk of flame. And I was just like, man, what's that? Always, the movie Always with Richard Dreyfuss and that whole thing, right? I mean, that's kind of the same. You could, and John Goodman, you could die doing this, and it doesn't matter. That's what they've signed up for. And I just, my heart goes out to those who've lost their homes. That doesn't do anything. And we'll talk about that. I addressed that in the editor's notes. It was important for me to let people know they're on our minds, and that we hope that they have a safer, and fast recovery. I've been in a hurricane. Hurricane Hugo was significant for the Charlotte area in the late 80s. We lost power for a couple of weeks, but outside of that inconvenience, we didn't really have devastation at the house. But I did see devastation everywhere. And I was down to Fort Myers 2 years ago, where I have cousins who live, and we went through that devastation, and they were fortunate. So, yeah, it's, hearts and prayers for everybody. And I know that doesn't make tomorrow easier for them if they've lost their home, because they wake up and they still lost their home. But there's a lot of good people out there. American Red Cross is a real easy thing to go to right now. And the LA Fire Department was the other one. Let me look at that real quick so I can tell people correctly. Okay, yeah. The Los Angeles Fire Department. Look that up. It's an eagle with a logo in the middle, and the eagle is holding an axe. It's a red logo, red and yellow logo, but dial them up. Go to the... and then the Los Angeles Regional Food Bank. That's the other one. So Red Cross, American Red Cross is the easiest, because I think there's a button specifically for fire relief. That would be the one I would tell people to go to, and they can probably search other links and such on the American Red Cross site. That would be if people can help. I mean, we've been asking people for different reasons for help now for really since 2020. And it's got, I don't know what people still have to give, because we've been asking and asking and asking. But hopefully there are, from what I can see, there are a lot of people helping one another. I hope I can feel good about that will continue.
One of the images that stood out to me was Santa Anita Park, which is it is a horse racing track, a famous one. Movies, it is truly picturesque, and it sits right at the foot of where the Eaton fire would have been. It itself was not in danger, but a lot of the track workers and people who bring that track to life every day, their livelihoods were at stake in those fires. So, but it became a hub for donations, and the parking lot, which just goes on forever. It is truly sprawling real estate. It was just filled as far as you could see with people bringing items, and it was just, I've been there in person for horse racing, and
Mhm.
it was just really impactful to see it being used for this. And it seemed like it was just second nature. It was just instinctive that this is, it was a big place. People rallied there, but it wasn't that. It took effort and intention, and that's the thing that struck me from John Stamos' wife Caitlin's videos. She was clearly making it known. First of all, it was clear that she didn't just spin up the charitable aim of her life, because she had known the nuts and bolts of how to tell people, "Hey, you do this, I'll send you proof of where it's going." Like it was very clear
That's
that she
right.
was
Yeah.
buttoned up, which is always important too, and the heart and the head were kind of both in the right, in a meaningful place.
Mm.
So took note of that for sure. And then the other thing, which, to spin this back a little bit to Beach Boys stuff, is there it was. I was watching a lot of the local news coverage from the local channels out there, and there's Frank Marshall standing in the middle of the street being interviewed and kind of talking about efforts going on just in the neighborhood. And it just, to your point, this struck everywhere, everybody, and such a wide range of people that I think it really is going to be something that it's LA, right? So it's a terrible devastation happens anywhere, but I think the attention on it, will be there for a long time to come. And I think also, it will also help make sure that people in Tennessee or North Carolina or other parts of the country, you mentioned Florida. Florida kind of gets a little bit of the attention every time there's hurricane season,
Yeah.
um, and sometimes that ends up uneven in terms of where's the relief going or whatnot. But that's not the point I'm making. The point is the fact that it's LA and it's so massive and so beyond what anyone thought was possible. I think it also brings to mind other people who might not be in LA who are going through devastation as well. I think it reframes some of the natural disasters we've been coping with, which is why taking care of the planet is an important thing to the extent we can. Okay, step off the soapbox.
Yeah. No, agreed. Taking care of the planet is important, in spite of what people believe. There, it doesn't matter if we believe it or not. It's still the we do breathe the air. We do live here. We should take care of it.
So,
Yeah.
what are the news items you got for us? What should we dive into before
Well,
we get to a news item about you and some of your other appearances you've been doing?
oh gosh. Well, what I guess I'll just tell everybody. I've been I did a I'll be on a couple of episodes of Dave Gebro's Disc Graffiti. Um, One where Dave and I end up just talking about how I came to ESQ, uh, I think with a few different perspectives and how we get into talking about music, and I surprise him a few times, and that's nice. And then we also talked about the Christmas album. I know the Christmas album episode will be in March. I'm not sure when uh, the episode in quote about me will be. That's probably going to be sooner. Then I just did last night. I think it was no, it was Sunday night. I did the Good Timin' guys, the Good Timin' fellas, Jake and Matt, Riley and Nate, and we discussed the Friends album. And I have plans getting doing a show with Beach Boys Basement with Steve Lewis, and one with the Giggins. So I'm hoping that those should be happening very soon as well. So keep an eye out for those. And we're going to be talking about, I guess that's a nice segue. We're going to be talking about the Brian Wilson Productions issues of Endless Summer Quarterly.
We'll pick those up in part 2 of Good Vibrations, a Beach Boys program.
See you soon.
Stay tuned.